Good morning, dear students. Welcome to another class on popular literature and culture. So, today we are continuing with our lecture series on Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And as we have mentioned in the previous three videos, we are actually now I'm actually providing a very detailed summary of the book, and it will be followed by a discussion on the themes and other aspects of the novel. So, today I welcome you all to the fourth installment of the lecture series. In this class, we will be covering the fourth quarter of the book. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, I advise you to watch the three videos and come back to this one. So in the previous video, we saw how Harry and Hermione was saving Norbert, the Norwegian Ridgeback, the dragon baby, and how they took him in a crate up to the tallest tower, that is the astronomy tower of Hogwarts School Castle, and how the dragon was saved by Charlie Weasley's friends who came in four different broomsticks. And because of all the excitement of having saved Norbert, Harry and Hermione now come down the astronomy tower, having forgotten to wear the invisibility cloak around them. Now they end up in front of Mr. Filch, who is very happy to take them to Professor McGonagall. And they already find that Neville is already there because Neville had overheard Draco Malfoy plotting to turn Harry and Hermione in. So he actually came out at night to warn Harry. Now, Professor McGonagall is really angry now because she's the head of Gryffindor House, and three Gryffindor students have been spotted in addition to Draco Malfoy roaming the castle at night, and she punishes them severely. She takes 50 points each from the Gryffindor House, and in addition to that, she also gives them detention. That is another form of punishment. Now they are really desperate. They are really depressed. They go to their dormitories and sleep it off. But the following day, that is the real challenge because all the other students are now awake, and they notice this change in the point status. They notice that 150 points are missing from their hard earned points the whole term. So when they find out that Harry and Hermione and Neville are responsible for it, they start behaving really insensitively to the trio, especially to Harry, because Harry is the more popular of the three. Harry has a lot of trouble, especially from the Quidditch team and all. Nobody is even talking to him or addressing him directly. Now, Harry becomes really depressed, and he resolves that he will not get involved in others' businesses from now on. But that kind of resolution is questioned the next day itself, because while passing through the corridor, Harry overhears Professor Quirrell talking to somebody, as if he is pleading with somebody, just not this time, not again, please, something like that. Now Harry is really curious, who is this guy talking to, and he goes to explore, but there is nobody in that room. And he's sure that it was Professor Snape, because Professor Snape is actually the suspect in all the activities that is going on in Hogwarts at the moment. Now, a few days they actually spend, it's not such a good time for them because all the other students are treating them really bad. But soon, Neville, Harry, and Hermione, they get notes from Professor McGonagall. And the note says that that evening, that night at 11 o'clock, they have to meet Mr. Filch for detention. Now, this is something they really are not looking forward to, working with Mr. Filch. So that night, they also find that Malfoy is there for the detention too. So the four kids, Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Malfoy, they meet Mr. Filch, who take them down to Hagrid's hut, and he announces that they'll have to work with Hagrid in the Forbidden Forest. Now, this thought is really irritating and scary for Malfoy and Neville. But Harry and Hermione, they are somewhat relieved because they like Hagrid and they like working with Hagrid. Whereas the other kids, they are not that familiar with Hagrid. They are also really scared about the dangers that might be lurking in Forbidden Forest. However, the five of them, they walk into the forest. Hagrid is also there, and Fang, the dog, is also there. And now Hagrid tells them what is the reason why they have entered the Forbidden Forest in the middle of the night. He shows them something on the ground. It is a silver liquid on the forest floor. And he says that it is actually the unicorn blood. And unicorns in the forest, there are many unicorns in the forest, in the Forbidden Forest. And in the past few days, they have been hunted by something strange, some strange being. And their duty for the night is to find out a hurt unicorn. So, judging by the unicorn blood pooled up on the forest floor, they feel like a hurt unicorn is roaming around and they have to help him. And now they split into two groups. Harry, Hagrid, and Hermione go in one direction. Malfoy, Neville, and Fang the dog go in another direction. Now they are walking forward in moonlight, and the forest is really thick with trees and all, and everything is quite spooky and scary. Now they hear a slithering noise as if a clock is trailing in the ground, and then it fades away. Now the kids are frightened, but Hagrid confirms that it is not a werewolf or a unicorn. And while they are walking through, they encounter a strange being. Now, this being is a centaur. A centaur is a half man, half horse. And this guy has a name. His name is Ronan. And Ronan seems to know Hagrid well. But he seems to look up at the sky a lot, examine the stars, and always repeatedly he says, Mars is bright tonight. Now you get the feeling that centaurs are animals or beings who are obsessed with stargazing, and they might even have powers of prophecy. And this Ronan warns them to be careful. And then they meet a second centaur. His name is Bane. He also says the same. Mars is bright tonight. And Hagrid tells the kids that centaurs are stargazers. They have deep minds, but they always keep to themselves. They are quite mysterious. They won't share anything quite openly. But at this point, while they are talking and walking, Neville and Malfoy send red sparks up to the sky, seeking help, that signaling that they are in danger. Now Hagrid has to go and get them, and now when Hagrid goes and examines what happened, he finds that it was something silly, a prank by Malfoy. Malfoy scared Neville. Now Harry has to team up with Malfoy and Fang, and Harry, Malfoy, and Fang go off in the other direction. And they walk into a clearing and they find the hurt unicorn lying on the forest floor. It is a beautiful sight. Harry has never seen a more beautiful being in his life. But as Harry is about to walk towards the unicorn, he notices a hooded figure, a figure which is wearing a black cloak with a hood. Now, this figure is moving towards the unicorn. It's not actually walking, it is gliding. It is gliding over the unicorn and it is drinking the unicorn blood. Malfoy and Fang, when they see this, they get so frightened that they run away. And the figure now sees Harry and it starts gliding towards Harry. Harry experiences a piercing pain on his scar, on his forehead. And he lies down on the forest floor, ready to be killed by whoever this is. But at the same time, he hears some hoof noises, and he is saved by a centaur. This is not a centaur that they met earlier. This is a younger centaur. Now this centaur actually saves him. The hooded being just exits from there, and Harry starts talking to the centaur. This centaur's name is Firenze, and he immediately identifies Harry. You are Harry Potter, right? Because Harry Potter has a scar and all. And then the centaur says the forest is not a safe place, especially for Harry. Now he offers Harry a ride on his back. Now centaurs, as I mentioned, it's a half human, half horse. The torso of a human and the body, face and torso of a human and the body of a horse. Now this centaur is carrying Harry on its back, giving a ride to him to meet Hagrid. But then he is met by other censors, and they disapprove of giving a ride to a human. According to censors, being treated as a horse or a donkey is quite it's not actually nice for them. It's not respectful for them to be treated as riding animals. Now Harry, he questions Firenze, and the other censures actually um, says that you should not, Firenze, you should be careful not to change what is written in the stars and all. Now Harry questions Firenze, and Firenze gives him a lot of information. Now Harry gets the information that whatever slayed the unicorn, it was a monstrous being, because unicorn is such a pure animal. So to kill it and drink its blood, unicorn blood has a lot of powers. It saves one even if one is on the verge of death, but you will have to pay a terrible price. The life after drinking unicorn blood will be a half life. Now Harry also gets the idea from Firenze that the hooded figure he encountered in the forest, it could be Voldemort. Voldemort is sustaining his life on unicorn blood while trying to get hold of the Philosopher's Stone present in the castle, because now he understands that it is Voldemort who wants the Philosopher's Stone in order to make elixir of life, that potion, drink it and become alive again. Now later Harry returns to the castle and shares his doubts with Ron and Hermione, and they are quite sure at this point that it is actually Snape who wants to steal the stone in order to give it to Voldemort. Now Harry goes to bed, and there he finds his lost invisibility clock, and there is a note attached to it which says, "Just in case." Now, who sent him this clock back? We are curious about that too. So that's the end of chapter 15, and let's read an important quotation from this chapter. Now, this is a scene where Harry finds the unicorn, the dead unicorn, in the forest floor. It was a unicorn, all right, and it was dead. Harry had never seen anything so beautiful and sad. Its long, slender legs were stuck out at odd angles where it had fallen, and its mane was spread pearly white on the dark leaves. Another quote from the same chapter is, "Then out of the shadows a hooded figure came crawling across the ground like some stalking beast. Harry, Malfoy, and Fang stood transfixed. The cloaked figure reached the unicorn. It lowered its head over the wound in the animal's side and began to drink its blood." Now, what I read to you is whatever the hooded figure, it could be Voldemort drinking the unicorn blood in the forest. Now let's see chapter 16, Through the Trapdoor. After the detention, the following days, they have a lot of exams, the end of year exams, and they are preoccupied with preparing for the exams and all. But in the back of Harry's mind, he is preoccupied with thoughts about Voldemort. He is worried that Voldemort is trying to come back to life and kill him. And even through this, they take all their exams, and after their last exam, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they discuss about Harry's constant headaches. He's been having headaches ever since his encounter with the hooded figure in the forest. And they also discuss Snape, and they also discuss the safety of the stone, of the Philosopher's Stone in the castle. They are reassured that it will be hard for Snape to get past Fluffy the dog. Nobody knows how exactly to get past Fluffy except for Hagrid. But after the last exam, when they are out in the grounds discussing about this, Harry is suddenly stirred by a thought. Something strikes him, and then the three kids, they run to Hagrid's hut, and Harry asks Hagrid about the stranger who gave him the dragon's egg. Hagrid just lazily says that they met in Hogshead, that is a village pub, and the person, he didn't even see the person's face because it was covered. And this person talked about animals, and Hagrid is quite, it's his weakness is animals, and they were talking about animals and strange animals, and Hagrid says that he has breeded a lot of strange animals like Fluffy. And then they might have discussed about Fluffy, and accidentally Hagrid revealed to the stranger the secret to pacify Fluffy. That is all you need to pacify Fluffy is to play him some music and he will sleep. Now the trio understands that whoever gave Hagrid the dragon's egg, it could be Snape, and they now know how to get past Fluffy. Now they are panicking and they run towards Dumbledore, but they find that Dumbledore is not in school. They are informed by McGonagall that Dumbledore has gone to Ministry of Magic in London on an urgent business. Now they try to convince McGonagall. They say that the Philosopher's Stone is under attack. Somebody is going to steal it that day. But McGonagall at first is taken aback. How does three first year kids know about the Philosopher's Stone? But she convinces them that the stone is safe because a lot of protective layers are surrounding the stone, so it will be quite safe. So it will be impossible to steal that well protected stone. But Harry is not really convinced. Now that Dumbledore is also not in school, it is the perfect day for somebody, especially Snape, to steal the stone. Now Harry decides to go down the trapdoor, and his friends Ron and Hermione they decide to accompany him. They don't want him to go on his own. So that night they meet in the Gryffindor common room. They are ready to head out, but they are stopped by somebody unexpected. That is Neville. He doesn't want them to roam about the school once again and lose Gryffindor points. He tries to fight them. But half heartedly, Hermione uses the Petrificus Totalis charm on him, hex on him. He is body bound, he's petrified. Now they get out of the common room and they walk towards the third floor corridor under the invisibility clock. All three of them are crouched under the invisibility clock, and they now find Fluffy. Fluffy has now just woken up from sleep. They also see a harp which was playing automatically. Now the harp has just stopped and Fluffy has woken up. Now they surmise that Snape has already beaten them to the trapdoor. Snape has already gone down the trapdoor, and Harry is carrying Hagrid's flute with him, and he plays the flute, and the dog sleeps again. And while the dog sleeps, Harry goes down the trapdoor first, and he's followed by Ron and Hermione, and they fall many feet down. They are scared that they will be falling on something hard, but they land on something soft, and they realize that they have fallen on a plant. This plant has snake like tendrils, and they try to move, but this plant tries to suffocate them. It is tightening around them, and it is trying to suffocate them. Now Hermione recognizes what plant this is. She says that this plant is devil's snare, and she says that devil's snare is afraid of light. It likes dark and damp places. Now she saves the boys. She rescues herself, but the boys are still suffocated by the plant. She saves the boys by producing flames out of her wand. She's quite brilliant in that, and she repels the plant and she saves the boys. Now they are walking down a passageway. So this is the first challenge they have. After Fluffy, after getting past Fluffy, they have to get past Devil's Snare. This was obviously a trap by their herbology professor, Professor Sprout. Now they walk down a passageway. Now they reach a chamber. It has a high ceiling. And in the room, they see small birds fluttering and flying. And they attempt to go across it, and they try to open the door to the next room, but the door doesn't open. They even try using magic, but it doesn't open. The magical charm is Alohomora to open doors. But they realize that the birds in the room, they are not actually birds, they are winged keys with wings. They also see that there are some broomsticks in the room. Now they use the broomsticks to chase the keys and find the right key. This is actually a simple task for the youngest seeker in a century, that is Harry. Harry very easily finds the right key. He catches a large silver key. It has a bent wing. the bent wing suggests that somebody already caught it and used it to open the door to the next room. Now Harry, Hermione and Ron, they have successfully caught the key and went to the next room. Now this particular this particular room, I guess it was an protective arrangement by Professor Flitwick, the charms teacher. Now, the next room, they find themselves standing in a dark room, and they try to walk, and then light suddenly floods the room. Now they realize that they are standing on the edge of a huge chessboard. The room itself is a huge chessboard, and they are standing behind the black colored chessmen, and the chessmen are carved in black stone, and they quite huge too. It's much larger than the kids themselves. Now they try to go across to the next door, but they understand that they cannot pass to the next room unless they play a game of chess. And Ron, we know that Ron is good in wizard's chess. That is one thing Hermione is not good at. That is a game of chess where Ron actually excels her. Now Ron, he suggests that they should assume the positions of some chessmen, black chessmen. They are in the black chessmen team. So Ron assumes the position of the black knight, Harry becomes a black bishop, and Hermione becomes a black castle. Now they realize that this game of chess will be more gruesome because whenever an icon is lost, the opposite team, the opposite chessmen will smash the icon. So it is very gruesome. Now under Ron's very careful instructions, they play the game of chess wonderfully. They lose some icons, they get some icons, and they reach a crucial point. At this point, Harry can take the White King only if Ron can sacrifice himself. But Ron does that in spite of Harry's. Harry says that Ron shouldn't do that, but Ron reassures Harry that it is Harry who has to go forward and face whatever is waiting for him. That is Snape. So anyway, Ron sacrifices himself. The White Queen smashes Ron, and Ron is knocked unconscious. And Harry proceeds to checkmate the king. Now they have won the game of chess. But they now have to leave an unconscious Ron to go to the next room. The next room, when Harry and Hermione go to the next room, they almost feel really like vomity because there is a troll in the room, and we already met a troll in the earlier part of the book, and the troll emanates a really bad smell, a disgusting smell. And they surmise, because the troll is already unconscious, they surmise that Snape has already got past the troll. Now Harry and Hermione reach the next room. In this room, there is nothing particularly dangerous. They find a table, and there were 7 bottles in it. And they try to go past the bottles to the next room. But at the moment when they try to get past the bottles, they find that purple colored fire is lit behind them, and black colored flames are lit in front of them. Now they are trapped between the fire, and now they notice that there is a roll of paper, and this roll of paper contains a riddle, and they have to solve this riddle to go further. But Hermione reads this riddle, and they understand that there are 7 bottles. 5 of them are poison, and one will take them onwards, take them forward, and one portion will take them to the last chamber. Now Hermione, after reading the riddle, she understands that it is not magic. She has to use logic to solve the riddle. Hermione, being brilliant and logical, she very easily solves the puzzle. She finds the right bottles. But when they look at the potion bottle to go onwards, they see that there is only enough for one person because Snape has already drank from it. Now Harry decides to take it. He decides to send Hermione back so that she can take Ron and find Dumbledore, to send an owl for Dumbledore to get help. Now Harry and Hermione drink their potions. It is icy cool when they drink it. Now Hermione goes back to Ron, and Harry crosses over to the dark fire to the other side, to the last chamber. But when he opens the chamber, he finds that somebody was awaiting him in the last chamber. He expected it to be Snape, but it wasn't Snape. It wasn't even Voldemort. Now, who is this person? So let's read this particular passage where Neville tries to stop the trio. Hermione stepped forward. Neville, she said, I'm really sorry about it. She raised her wand. Petrificus Totalis, she cried, pointing it at Neville. Neville's arms snapped to his sides. His legs sprang together, his whole body rigid. He swayed where he stood and then fell flat on his face, stiff as a board. Hermione ran to turn him over. Neville's jaws were jammed together so he couldn't speak. Only his eyes were moving, looking at them in horror. What have you done to him? Harry whispered. It's the full body bind, said Hermione miserably. Oh, Neville, I'm so sorry. We had to, Neville. No time to explain, said Harry. Now, here we see Neville trying to stop the trio from going out and losing points again, and Hermione having, out of necessity, she had to hex him. Now let's come to the last and final chapter of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Chapter 17, The Man with Two Faces. To Harry's amazement, he was expecting Professor Snape there. He finds that it was Professor Quirrell who was waiting for Harry. It was a shocking revelation to him. Quirrell now laughs at Harry's expectation of finding Snape. He reveals that Snape was actually all ears. Snape was trying to stop Quirrell. Snape knew about Quirrell's plans and he was even trying to save Harry during the Quidditch match. Actually, Snape was not trying to knock Harry off the broomstick. It was Quirrell who was controlling the broomstick through eye contact. And while trying to stop Snape, Hermione had accidentally knocked over Quirrell and stopped his eye contact. And then he reveals some more shocking revelations. He reveals that he was the one who let the troll out on the Halloween night so that he could go down the trapdoor, but he was stopped by Snape that night too. Then Harry sees that Quirrell is now standing in front of a mirror. He realizes that this is the mirror of Erised, the mirror in which he can look at something and he can see his deepest desires. This mirror is the key of finding the stone. This is certainly an arrangement by Professor Dumbledore. Now Quirrell binds Harry with ropes out of his wand and he concentrates on the mirror. He definitely knows that if he looks at the mirror, he can see the key to finding the stone is in the mirror, but he definitely can't find it. Now Harry also tries to stop Quirrell by making him talk. Now Quirrell says that he was following the advice of his master, instructions of his master. His master is with him all the time. Then he reveals that his master is indeed Lord Voldemort. He met Lord Voldemort when he was traveling around the world as a young man. He had a lot of ideas about good and evil, but Lord Voldemort changed his viewpoint, and ever since he has been following Lord Voldemort's instruction. He even tried to steal the Philosopher's Stone from Gringotts' bank. Now Harry realizes, he remembers that day when he visited Gringotts' bank, he had seen Professor Quirrell in the bar. So now Quirrell becomes really impatient. He can't find the stone. Now he asks Harry to look into the mirror. Now he asks his master, what should I do, master? I can't find the stone. Now Harry is really horrified because some voice comes out of Quirrell, but it's a different voice from his own voice. The voice says, use the boy. Now Harry is grabbed by Quirrell and placed in front of the mirror. Now at this point, the voice comes from Quirrell. It's demanding to look Harry in the face. Now Harry breathes in a very funny smell from Quirrell's turban. Quirrell's turban always smelled like garlic or something like that. Now Harry looks into the mirror and he sees his own reflection. The reflection is smiling at Harry. It pulls out a blood red colored stone from his pocket and it puts it back. At the same moment, Harry feels that something heavy just dropped into his pocket. Now he has the real stone in his pocket. But Harry lies to Quirrell that he cannot see the stone. He sees that he is actually shaking hands with Dumbledore. He has won the house cup and all. But the voice from Quirrell again comes, says that the boy is lying. Now the voice demands to talk Harry directly, face to face. Now Quirrell really shocks Harry. He unwraps his turban. Harry is petrified. He cannot even move or run. At the back of Quirrell's head, there is a face, a terrible chalk white face with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils like a snake. The face almost looks like a snake. It's extremely white, it has red eyes, doesn't have a nose like a snake. It was Lord Voldemort who was inhabiting Quirrell's body. Now Voldemort directly addresses Harry. Harry now has terrible headache. His scar is quite aching now. Now he says that Voldemort says that he is a mere shadow and vapor now because of Harry, because he tried to kill Harry. He demands the stone in Harry's pocket. For some reason, Voldemort knows that the Philosopher's Stone is now in Harry's pocket. Now Harry steps backward, and Voldemort says, "Your parents also were quite cowardly." Now Harry says that's a lie, and Voldemort now asks Harry to join him rather than die. You just join me, boy. Now Harry says never. Now Quirrell is actually walking backwards to him because the face, Voldemort's face, is on the back of Quirrell's head. And the evil face is smiling at Harry. Now Voldemort described how he killed Harry's parents. His father was putting up a brave fight. He killed his father first. Then his mother. She did not have to be killed, but she was trying to protect Harry, and she was also killed. But Harry was not possible to be killed by Voldemort. Now Harry tries to escape. He tries to run, but he is grabbed by Quirrell. Harry feels a sharp pain on his forehead, but to his surprise, he finds that Quirrell is also screaming loud. Quirrell has let him go. He is hunched in pain, and now Quirrell is looking at his fingers. Now his fingers are full of blisters. Now Quirrell tries to grab Harry again and wring his neck, but then again he is howling in agony and saying he cannot hold Harry. Whenever he tries to hold Harry, Quirrell is getting burned. His hands look burned, raw, red, and shiny. Now Quirrell tries to kill Harry using the killing curse. But Harry now understands that Quirrell cannot touch Harry's bare skin without hurting himself. Now Harry grabs Quirrell's face, and Quirrell's face is also now getting burnt and blistered. Although Harry suffers from great headache, Harry hangs on tight around Quirrell. And he hears the voices of Quirrell, he hears the voices of Voldemort, and he also hears voices inside his head calling out, "Harry, Harry, Harry." He was losing consciousness, but he was worried that Quirrell will escape with the stone. Now Harry wakes up. He wakes up in a different room. He opens his eyes to see that Albus Dumbledore is in the hospital wing. He is holding out Harry's glasses. Now Harry panics. He puts on the glasses. He asks Dumbledore, "Where am I? What happened? Quirrell, stone, Philosopher's Stone, and everything." And now Dumbledore explains that Quirrell does not have the stone. He is informed that it's been 3 days since Harry has been in the hospital unconscious. And then Harry looks around to see he is indeed in the hospital wing of the school, and there are a lot of sweets and all. So Dumbledore says that his admirers have given him the sweets and all the chocolates and all gifts. And whatever happened in the dungeons between Quirrell and Harry was a secret. So naturally, everyone in the school now knows about what happened. Harry is an absolute hero at this point. Now, Quirrell had taken the stone from Harry, but Dumbledore came just in time to get it back. And Harry was also, the effort of saving the stone was nearly killing Harry, but Dumbledore came just in time to save him. And he also says that the stone belongs to a person named Nicholas Flamel, Dumbledore's friend. Dumbledore talked to Nicholas Flamel, and they have decided to destroy the stone. They have already destroyed the stone. Now Dumbledore reassures Harry that Um, Voldemort should always be called Voldemort, not he who must not be named or you know who. Because, and he also says that Voldemort will always try to find ways of coming back. He's just inhabiting. He left Quirrell's body. Quirrell has already died. He is seeking another body. He must already be inhabiting another body. Now, although Harry asks Dumbledore the reason why he is targeted by Voldemort as a baby, he doesn't get a definite answer about that. Now, Dumbledore says that Harry is wondering why he was hurting Quirrell when he touched him. Now, Dumbledore says that it was because of his mother's sacrifice. When she died for Harry, she left a mark of love on Harry, which was actually acting as a protective mark, a protective charm on Harry. Voldemort, with his sinful activities, when he touched Harry, it was too much for him. It is also revealed that Dumbledore was the one who sent the invisibility cloak to Harry because it originally belonged to Harry's father, James Potter. He was using it mostly for breaking rules and all. But they also discussed that Professor Snape and Harry's father, James Potter, they went to school together. They were actually enemies. But something happened when Harry's father saved Professor Snape's life once. Now, he was indebted to save Harry's life. So, all year, Professor Snape was actually protecting Harry. Now, he also tells Harry that why was he able to get the stone out of the mirror? That is because Harry only intended to save the stone, not use it. The only person who will be able to take the stone out of the mirror was one who did not intend to use it. That was another magic by Dumbledore. Now again, Ron and Hermione, they visit Harry. Now he knows what is going on in the school. He is actually a hero now. They also discuss what happened outside in the school. In his absence, Slytherin house has won the highest points. They've already won the house cup and everything. So next night, Harry decides to go to the end of the year feast. On the way, he is greeted by Hagrid, who is really guilty. He feels like it is because of him that such things have happened to Harry. Now he gives him a gift. This is an album full of wizard photographs of his parents. Hagrid collected a lot of photographs of his parents, of Harry's parents, from his friends. From friends. So wizard photographs always move. It's not like our photographs, which are still photographs. It's actually moving, like gifs and all. So anyway, the hall, when Harry reaches the hall is seen to be decorated in Slytherin colors of green and silver because Slytherin has won the house cup. Now, before the feast starts, Dumbledore stands up and addresses the students. He announces the point status of the houses, and before awarding the house cup, he gives out some last minute points. Now, this is surprising. 50 points are awarded to Ron for the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen. 50 points are given to Hermione for her intellect and logic. 60 points are given to Harry for pure nerve and outstanding courage because he had the courage to face Lord Voldemort. Now they find that Gryffindor and Slytherin houses are tied in house points. Finally, Neville Longbottom is awarded 10 points for bravery to stand up to one's friends. Now, Gryffindor has won the House Cup after 7 years, and everybody, all the other houses except for Slytherin, celebrates it, applauds and celebrates it. And at the end of the year, they have all scored good marks. They prepare to go back to their homes for vacation. Now they have an uneventful train ride back to London. And Harry is received by King's Cross Station by his uncle, aunt, and cousin. They are quite rude to everyone as usual. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they promise to each other that they will be sending owls to each other. And they hope to get back to the school after summer. And the trio now separate. So that's the end of the book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Now, let me just read you some quotations from the last chapter. Always use the proper name for things. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. This is a quotation by Dumbledore, who advises Harry to use Voldemort's name. Then, the truth, Dumbledore's side. It is a beautiful and terrible thing and should therefore be treated with great caution. Now, this is when Harry asks Dumbledore why he was hunted by uh, Voldemort as a baby. He wanted to know the truth, but he is not given the truth at that point. Then, this is another quote from Dumbledore's exchange with Harry. If there's one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He didn't realize that love, as powerful as your mother's for you, leaves its own mark. Not a scar, not a visible sign. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It's in your skin. Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with Voldemort, could not touch you for this reason. It was agony to touch a person marked by something so good. Now, this is the explanation why Quirrell could not hold Harry or touch Harry. That was because of the protection given to him by his mother. So with this, we have come to the end of discussing summary of this book. I hope that you enjoyed these videos I have made for you. Stay tuned for the discussion on themes and other aspects of this book. Thank you for watching again. Bye. Have a nice day.